Thank you very much for coming all the way from London to our distinguished guest from the Middle East Forum for Development on minority rights in Pakistan. Both of us have been very interested so far in the situation in Pakistan and also traveled there. And a number of other MPs and assistants are listening because it's a public broadcasting, so just to make sure people can actually look at the internet and see what you tell. And I'd like to give you the floor for an introduction.
I'd like to thank you, Mr. Omsik, first of all, and the coordinators and your colleagues for giving us the opportunity, because in 2013 I was here. My issue is slightly different, but oppressor is the same. As the topic was human rights violations of ethnic and religious minorities in Pakistan. In discussing the human rights violations of minorities in Pakistan, we need to be careful not to equate the two as the same. Both national minorities or ethnic and religious minorities face the wrath of the Pakistani civil and military establishment, but they have different backgrounds and different aspirations. While the Pakistani military invaded and illegally occupied the independent sovereign Baluchistan state of Kalat in 1948, that has resulted in 5 separate wars of independence. The Christians, Hindus, the Zoroastrians, populations across Pakistan face a systematic and institutional discrimination that lies in the very essence of why Pakistan was created. The foundational doctrine was the separation of Muslims from Hindus and the obvious constitutional second-class status of non-Muslims in the Islamic State. While Pakistan's religious minorities seek equality within Pakistan's constitution, the Baluch seek their independence and an end to the military occupation of its historical land, irrespective of the religion or the race of the people who inhabit Baluchistan. This distinction must be remembered when we discuss human rights of racial and religious minorities. Our oppressors are the same, our goals are very different. Some points Professor Desmond touched upon as genocide in Baluchistan. Mass graves were discovered on the 25th of January in Tutak, Khuzdar. 167 bodies, decomposed bodies of previously missing people were found. This clearly comes in the realms of genocide, as Professor is an expert on the field. We have asked for independence on many forums, and it's been said by the Pakistani state that we are impinging on their sovereignty and territorial integrity. So let's come to a civilized solution for this oppression and occupation of Pakistan. Why can't we have a referendum for Baluch independence? And referendum now, under the supervision of the United Nations and the international community. Not a referendum when Pakistan demographically imbalances us, brings its people. It's got 180 million. We're only 12 million people, and we're half of Pakistan's landmass. If you have a referendum in 30 years' time, there's no chance of us gaining independence. So that's a civilized solution. Military operations have continued for years. As I was here last year, I said Parvez Musharraf regime had gone. Zardari regime was here. I discussed Zardari then. Now it's Nawaz Sharif. The same operation is continuing. The military runs the show in Baluchistan. It doesn't matter. I mean, they said it's a democracy. I call it a kleptocracy. Everybody comes in to make money, to be in power, but the state is run by the military. I don't want to expand on too many issues, but I'm sure in the interactive discussion we can discuss some of the topics I mentioned. Thank you very much. Just one point. From Baluchistan's point of view, I think we have over 18,000 disappeared. And post-2014, when the American troops leave Afghanistan, if Karzai signs or doesn't sign, we'll find out. But if they leave, it's going to be Pakistan is going to be a serious danger to the nation, to the region, and Baluchistan is going to be again the sandwich between the great game. And Pakistan's presence in Afghanistan would be far worse than what it was with Al Qaeda and Taliban before, as we've seen. I mean, we are sandwiched in the middle. We see what Pakistan does. Everything that happens in Afghanistan, all the terrorism, Pakistan is behind it somehow or another. Americans know this better than we do. NATO knows this better than we do. So you have to defang Pakistan post-2014, because then now we are the victims, but then we far greater victims after post-14. Brief point. I think the name says it all. It's called Pakistan, the land of the pure. My country is called Baluchistan, the land of the Baluch. The land of the pure, of course, we're not pure over there. It's only for the
if I can come back to the name of the country, for instance, Jinnah himself retained the dominion of Pakistan. I think the Islamic Republic of Pakistan itself being constitutionalized creates second-class status straight away. And I'm sure you're aware that the constitution has many potential reforms that could help minorities also. The fact that Pakistani Christians cannot become prime minister or president. The fact that Islam is declared the national faith of the country.
Yeah, I'd like to give the floor 1 second to Mr. Sevas, member of the Social Democratic Party and one of the leading government parties.
Labour Party, I guess that is, to people familiar with the British political system. Well, thank you, and thank you so much for your introductions. To be honest with you, for me, this information that you provided to us is relatively new, but therefore, very valuable. I just have a few questions. Just to get a better picture of of how the different groups are targeted, are affected by this law. Because we focus very much, and understandably so, on Christian minorities. But if you would describe it in terms of percentages, so how much of the violence, how much of the incidents that take place based on the blasphemy laws concern Christian minorities, how much is, let's say, intra-Islamic violence, and are there in fact also non-religious groups that are affected by this? So that's one group. I had the same question as my colleague here on how the UK is dealing with this, because, I mean, apart from the asylum aspect of it, I look at it from a general human rights point of view, and we're always looking for very practical ways how to deal with those issues. Actually, the Human Rights Committee is meeting at the moment. So what would you say are the most positive examples then of how these issues have been addressed at the international level, not just by the UK, but maybe by other players, European or otherwise? And then one last question on Balochistan. I read in the human rights report from last year, I believe this is, which is, you don't get very optimistic about this, but there is a reference to the attempts by the new Sharif government to actually achieve some kind of reconciliation. It's not very successful, obviously, but could you comment on that a little bit? So do you think the government at least is sincere in trying to reach some sort of reconciliation, and why would you say that that hasn't achieved any results so far? So thank you.
So I'll answer the Balochistan question first. The government is absolutely not sincere. It never has been, because it's powerless. I mean, maybe Mr. Sharif might be very sincere, as I last time said. Zardari might be sincere, but the show in Balochistan is run by the military. It's the military bureaucracy that runs Balochistan. And the scenario is getting really bad now because, I mentioned post-2014, the Chinese presence in Balochistan. The viability of Pakistan is basically because of its occupation of Balochistan. The entire Arabian Gulf is Balochistan. Iran-Afghanistan border is Balochistan. Pakistan is limited up to the north. So therefore, we are a strategic asset of Pakistan. They don't see us Baluch of any value. Most of us are uneducated, and they try their best to keep us uneducated. You see in foreign policy, have you ever seen an ambassador from Balochistan? Have you ever seen somebody in foreign service from Balochistan? People from Balochistan look like me. And how many? Because we're a different ethnic race than Pakistanis.
Difficult to see for me.
Yeah, but there's a difference, distinct difference. We're a different race of people. But the Baluch, you never see them as representatives of Pakistan. My point being, what the aim is in the next 25 years, 20 years, if Pakistan exists, is to annihilate, to eliminate the Baluch nation or assimilate it into the mainstream Pakistani Islamic fundamentalist channel. We are secular people. We always have been. We've been occupied for 65 years. Have you ever heard of Baluch Islamic group? No. The death squad that the professor was talking about, they've made deprived Baluch kids into death squads for killing Baluch nationalists and for killing other ethnic minorities. So if this thing continues, the Talibanization of Balochistan, I go to the Human Rights Council since 2001, and I've said about Talibanization in 2002 and 3. I said, and now it's on the rise. And if you don't stop this process or intervene somehow as the civilized nations, and I think it's your responsibility, this war on terror, the presence of NATO, the curbing of Talibanization and Al-Qaeda, this will expand exponentially, way beyond it is today. And we are ready people over there. We are strategically located, secular people. We need the international community support. In our case, in Balochistan, I mean, there's a recent documentary, British journalist did it. It's very interesting if you watch the documentary. It's based on a true story. The persecution of the Baluch, or the extrajudicial of the killing of the Baluch, is justified by saying agent of Israel, agent of USA, and agent of India. And that's how they justify, and we are the real thoroughbred Muslims, and these are agents. I mean, that's the level of intellectual thinking of the Pakistani soldiers and the military generals. And that's how they're eliminating the Baluch, not understanding the root cause of the issue, that they've occupied a foreign country. Kill them, and the soldiers are going ahead, and mass graves, as our friend asked before about what Nawaz Sharif thinks. This mass graves is 25th of January. This is in the tenure of Nawaz Sharif. So, of course, he has no control, or he has consent. We don't know.
One quick thing. The book which I mentioned earlier on specifically had a chapter on that, drawing the connections between the two. And as you said, if you've got extrajudicial execution one way or another, you know, you were looking at the same sort of scenarios in terms of no proper right for protection, or you know. But there's a key chapter there on that. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll happily read it, but I have to say I'm a bit short on reading time. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for the public for attending. Make sure you keep us up to date. Mr. Voordeman has been the last one to table a motion, particularly on the plight of Christians.